Hello, I am Chris Shea from ElevateNet. As she had previously mentioned, I am also one of the sponsors for this event. We manage all the data communications, everything we have set up here as far as all the comms and the Wi-Fi for all of you. Background on myself, I have an undergrad in information technology from CMU, a graduate certificate in healthcare administration, and a graduate certificate in cybersecurity, just a short ways away from my master's in science administration. I spent 10 years in the Army, 3 deployments between Iraq and Afghanistan. Between each base I was on overseas, I set up the same company as I'm doing here and I'm going to present to you tonight. Next slide. So the problem in Michigan, once I came back here, people told me I should do the same thing. So I said, okay. Here we have an issue where the internet is a vast and amazing tool for research, social media, communication, general networking. Now imagine your life without internet. So you're in the rural areas, you have no access, or you have very low quality, low speed access. You can't do your emails, your social media, Netflix, streaming, as it may be. Michigan residents are feeling this pain. Next slide. So according to 2012 Connect Michigan survey, a little over 319,000 households are without a basic 6 meg connection. So a 6 meg connection, to give you kind of an idea, this is the absolute basic for what you need for, say, Facebook now, your email access of a higher graphic quality, Netflix streams, etc. And then beyond that, about 50,000 households within Michigan have access to not even that, but the only thing they do have is dial-up or nothing at all, or if they have satellite. That's a last-ditch effort. Next slide. So ElevateNet has the tools, the resources, and the experience to solve this types of a problem. So that is our solution. So many different types of connections or companies that operate as we do utilize a single uplink site. So this is basically where they access their internet from. What I do is I access it from multiple different points across our network. So for example, when I set the systems up in Afghanistan, for example, I use a connection off the UAE. I use a long-range wireless connection off of Afghan Telecom fiber optic connection. I use a satellite link throughout a couple different countries in Europe. This gave me the ability, so if any country had any issues, I did not. Next slide. Our product is not actually the internet itself, but the means to connect to it all. The actual connection to the broad world of the internet. Next slide. This is a design plan for the water tower in Kingsley. This is an example of what we try to gain access to. So we search for water towers, tall buildings, conventional towers, anything of an elevated asset that we can then affix radio equipment on top of. So that's what we need, is we need to get high and we need to broadcast. Next slide. So this is essentially how it works. We have some type of a tower or an elevated asset. We broadcast out to the individual homes or the businesses to be able to give them internet access. From that point, once we identify who's within our broadcast area, we install our equipment, connect them to our wireless network, and then they then have access to the internet. Next slide. So what really changes things is, beyond my experience, the dedication to the customer service. So we manage all the installations, we manage the purchase process, we answer the phones, we communicate with the actual home once the equipment's been installed, and we continuously monitor everything from our internet access throughout all of our network as well as the network within the home itself. Next slide. So what I did before I started everything was basically research multiple different other companies that operate similar to the way that we operate to determine what their general average is. Because my goal is to always win. So what I did is looked at what they have as far as their offerings for different speed packages. I then computed what I have for my cost and what it actually takes to get out there. And then I built my packages that you can also find this data on elevatenet.net. Next slide. So our target goal, right now I'm looking at Michigan, but predominantly northern Michigan, because as we know, there's a lot of rural areas around this area that we just simply can't get internet or high-speed internet, for example. Our customers vary as far as economical background and their access to different types of internet access, but the overall situation is, geographically, we're all in the same boat. We're spread out, we're not in a high-density area that gives us easy access to like fiber optic internet or cable internet, and some of the rural areas can't even get that. Next slide. So what we're really looking for is investments. For each tower site that we would actually build, for the tower itself, the material, the equipment, the installation, so on and so forth, is about $10,000. So the goal is to expand across what we have going on in Kingsley and add 3 more sites. That's $30,000. Then beyond that, to have a stock to do the actual installations within the homes, we're looking at an additional $10,000 for a total of $40,000 to expand off what we have and start offering more internet to the surrounding area. Next slide. And that's my time. Any questions? And then my last quote is, we know we are not the connection or the center of our customer lives, but our entire goal, and my goal, is to connect them to what is. And this is a picture, for example, of access from being overseas, to be able to see home, see family, connect to one another. And that's the entire goal, and that's why I do what I do. There's hands everywhere. I'll go close.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And same questions. Everybody's got the same question, which is, how do we get the 40 grand back, and what's the profit potential for the investor?
What I've done is I have 2 companies set up under the ElevateNet name. So I have ElevateNet LLC as I currently operate and do everything as I do. And I have ElevateNet Processing as a corporation with shares set up between, and then basically my business lawyer and the accountant manages all that. Then we can talk to you about the actual return rates on how you want to do. Depending on what you put in, you get better or better return. So I have shares issued. We have the corporation already in place. Everything's ready. It's just a matter of who wants to put it out there, and then we'll talk about returns on that.
Where does the money come from?
To give back?
I give you 40 grand.
Yep.
Where do I get my 40 grand back? And then what do I get beyond the 40?
We expand this system. We put this system in place. We start offering internet access to all these areas, obviously marketing. We get people signed up onto our system, and then we have that continuous flow coming in, and there's a quite high profit margin. So obviously from those profits, it's what my ultimate goal is. Whatever you give to me, I'm going to buy you out ultimately, and then I'll give you your profit back.
Okay.
Next.
How many houses is that $10,000 installed?
It depends on the actual topography of a certain area. So if everything's flat, I can cover a lot more. And again, it depends on the density of the area. So if I install a tower at the center of a high density area, then I can gain access to a lot more households. If I put it into a less dense area, then I have less access to households. If I put it in an area with potentially a hill on one side, then I create a shadow and can't get those places. So it really all depends on where I actually end up going. So that's a big variable.
Do you have a range, like Kingsley area, wherever you
Yeah, I could, depending on the actual radio equipment, like what we have back here that's broadcasting here and getting everybody internet, that device that goes on top of a tower can push about 20K, 20 kilometers. I had one over here.
You don't have any trouble getting tower space or getting approval from localities to put towers in?
No, those are 2 different questions. As far as gaining access to water towers, that's just a lot of meetings, and that's what I've been doing a lot of lately. So I have access to the Kingsley water tower, and what I worked out with them is we are installing free downtown Wi-Fi for Kingsley, and in turn we're utilizing their water towers. And that's basically our trade-off. That gives me access to that. And the goal is then to put towers up within that 100 or so foot range that falls below the requirements of a lot of other planning commissions and stuff like that, so I don't have as many issues.
Yeah, I thought they were forcing people to go on neutral towers.
There's a lot of different situations going there. A company called American Tower bought most of the towers in the area, and it can cost me anywhere between $800 and $2,500 a month just to put equipment on there, so I avoid that at all costs, which is why I want to do investments and build my own. Yes, special.
I'm wondering, does this connect to individual devices, or do you connect to a router in somebody's house and then they split that with their router?
Kind of yes and yes. So with our overall management system, the ultimate goal is to have all of our equipment managing the wireless uplink back to our tower. You just close the timer. Manage the uplink to the tower, the actual internal router, as well as the wireless or whatever it may be within the home. Therefore, if the clients have any issues, we can actually log into our system. We can change passwords for them if they wish. We can verify what their connection speeds, the signal quality, et cetera, could be. If they don't want to do that and they want to have, like, say, their own Linksys router wireless access point, then our demarc point is essentially where we plug into them, and that's what they get. So it varies on what they want. But like I showed you previously, our business management system, as far as being able to manage all of the clients, that software will fully encompass all clients at all locations.
Yeah, because you alluded to this, but this is basically a line of sight system, right?
Essentially. It depends on the actual frequency that they use. The lower the frequency we go, the more that we can penetrate, the longer we can go. That will vary on tree canopy. Obviously, we can't shoot through a mountain. unless we do a lot of other crazy stuff. But usually the easiest situation is to put a repeater on top of the mountain if you have to do that kind of thing. And I've dealt with that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun when you're playing in Afghanistan, one going over a mountain. Yeah, in the back.
So have you tried to size up what the market potential is?
Yes.
up here? What-
This area is very large. If anybody was here last month when I talked and I referenced the individual as Tom from Connect Michigan, his entire life is connecting with other governmental entities in the area that are dealing with this problem, because a lot of people simply don't want to move where they can't get internet. So a lot of our surrounding areas that are rural and can't get high-speed cable, for example, are having issues even getting people to move there. So what we're doing is identifying those communities and working with the county commissioners to expand more and more and more. So they basically, the state just continuously feeds me data from my relationship with him. And I mean, between Leelanau County, you get out towards Williamsburg, all around Kalkaska, Paradise Township, everything you go towards Bill Laird going west in that whole area. There's a lot of spaces that can't have cable access purely because of population density, and Charter doesn't want to do it.
So rough and tough, like if you're installing in Kingsland, I want to subscribe to your service, what would it wind up costing?
Depends on what speed you want. Usually the average is about $65 a month, depending on where you are and how you classify if you're technically a rural or residential or rural or urban connection.
And how fast is the service is that at 65 a month?
At $65 a month is the 6 meg connection for rural.
Is that up and down or just down?
That is just down.
What's up?
I have to verify my sheet. I believe I gave 1 meg up on that. But really, as far as a connection, I can make it any way it needs to be if someone wants it. It's just a matter of what they want to pay for.